Bill Muncey, the personification of hydroplane racing in this world. Age 52, the winningest driver in the world. 8 Gold Cups, 7 national championships, 9 wins in Seattle, a winner of 7 straight in Seattle from 77 through 80. He is dead at the age of 52. Hello, everyone. I'm Don Poyer. Normally, the 5 of us, Rod Belcher, Mike Fitzsimmons, Elaine Perkins, and Dick Klinger, only get together one time a year, and that's to bring the excitement of a hydroplane race to you. Tonight, we're here because we've lost an old friend. Bill Muncey, dying down in Acapulco just this past weekend, yesterday, down in a race in the final heat. Mike, you are familiar with the style of racing, these boats. How exactly did you see the accident happening?
The accident was what is called in the vernacular a blowover. It was an accident where the boat's contact with the water is lost at the sponsons. It rises up and does a 180-degree backward flip, pitching the driver into the water, usually ahead of the direction of the boat's actual travel. The Atlas Van Lines, of course, was out in front of the rest of the pack, having made a beautiful start, getting through the first corner first and leading the pack down the back chute on lap 1 of the final heat of the race yesterday. And that's the worst place for something like that to happen. All the traffic is coming up behind you.
Now, we had Steve Reynolds on the show earlier at 5 o'clock, and we talked about the conditions of the water. He said it was very, very smooth at the time, and in some cases that can be a problem.
Right, glass smooth water. If you liken it to a cup in the dishwater, when you pull it from the water, the contact lets go and has a springing effect to pop off. And that sort of thing means that the ejection effect of the boat leaving the water, that water contact, we call it sticky water, and the boat adhesion is much heavier than it would be with a chop. And when that happens, the pop away causes the aggravation of the race boat leaving the water and can create that kind of thing. I have no idea what caused that boat to actually let go. It was such a forgiving hull. It had flown before, but it came down flat all
Exactly.
the time.
You had said that. It was a very, very true hull, a forgiving hull. It's amazing.
After many years of racing, its trim was perfect, it seemed. The boat, even though it would leave the water and would fly, always seemed to come down so flat.
It's very similar to Chip Hanauer's flip, which took place not long ago on Lake Washington, and we have video of that, and maybe you can compare the two.
Although water conditions and weather conditions were different at Acapulco yesterday, Don, the Squire Shop, as you see here on choppy water on September the 9th on Lake Washington, did do the same sort of thing. The physical reaction of the hull to the water and the way it comes down was quite similar. Imagine, if you will, in this picture, though, 5 other thunderboats coming at you at 170 miles an hour behind Bill Muncey's boat, who had about a 6 or 7 boat length lead, a second or 2. Watch now as Chip comes down, the rise up takes place, and over she goes. Now, when the boat makes contact there, out goes the driver. You see that happen? And that's precisely what happened with Bill. His boat went to one side, Muncey to the other side. Let's look at it slower here.
And once again, then the Squire came from behind on the race yesterday
from behind
and went over part of the boat.
Ran over part of the race boat. Then Milner Irvin came along and avoided Bill Muncey by wrenching to the right, and he too went into a spin. Now there's the contact of the sponson prongs. Out goes the driver. Right there, you see it. That's precisely the way Bill was pitched from the boat yesterday.
Bill was not wearing a parachute. Bill was not wearing the collar that many drivers wear.
Skid collar. Did not wear it.
And as a result, if you did not hear, his spine was severed between the 3rd and 4th vertebrae in his neck, and there was virtually no chance of saving him at that point as soon as they had discovered the injury. Well, Bill was a very special man to all of us, and we thought it would only be fair to bring to you this incredible background of this man, Bill Muncey.
Bill Muncey was born 52 years ago in Detroit, Michigan. As a young boy of only 8, his love for boats was apparent. He had already begun to drive. When World War II broke out, Bill joined the Army. A man who could never turn down an audience, he became an extremely talented musician performing in the USO. When the war ended, Bill returned to Detroit, where he worked with his father at the family-owned car dealership, but his desire to race boats continued to eat away at him. In 1950, he finally got to drive a boat of significance, the Miss Great Lakes. But it wasn't until 1955 that he moved west. He became a disc jockey at King Radio. Designer Ted Jones recommended Bill to Willard Rhodes, who was building a boat called the Miss Thriftway. He passed his test and was given the ride despite resistance by the Seattle-based crew, which was reluctant to have a Detroit native in the cockpit. In that same year, Muncey won the final heat of the 55 Gold Cup, the slow-mo Ford gone dead in the water.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the young man who, with tremendous courage, you just saw drive Miss Thriftway around this course for 30 miles with a shattered hull. Now, when did it happen, Bill?
I don't have the slightest idea, Tommy. I caught just a corner of it out beside the engine there, and it didn't look like much to me. I didn't even realize it was bad it was until I got out of the boat here.
Well, you didn't realize that it was that badly shattered?
Oh, no. I wouldn't have cared. I'd gone anyhow.
I know you would, Bill.
But the Gale 5 had more bonus points. Muncey was bitterly disappointed. His controversial reputation was born. In 1956, more controversy. Muncey appeared to have won his first Gold Cup. But then another argument. It was ruled Muncey clipped a buoy, and the cup was given to the Miss Pepsi. But after viewing the films, it was found that the buoy was not dislodged. So Muncey was awarded the Gold Cup the next day. In '57, Bill dominated the sport, winning his second Gold Cup and made his debut in the first cab-over, the Thriftway 2. 1957 and '58 were disastrous years. Driving the Miss Thriftway in Madison, Indiana, the boat suddenly disintegrated. The boat that had dominated unlimited racing was now only a memory. But there was new hope with a new boat the next year. It was time for the annual Classic in Seattle when disaster struck a second time. The boat lost its rudder, sending the Thriftway crashing into a Coast Guard cutter.
The race is being stopped. There is Miss Thriftway, not on the beach exactly, but there she is. And where is Bill?
Muncey was able to jump from the cockpit before the impact. But in 1959, Muncey was back. Another tough Gold Cup, and Muncey lost to a man by the name of Bill Stead and the Maverick Camp out of Detroit. In 1960, there was no Gold Cup, but it didn't slow Muncey and the Thriftway Camp down. Bill set a world straightaway record of 192 miles per hour. In '61 and '62, Bill enhanced his rivalry with the Maverick Camp by winning his third and fourth Gold Cups. In 1963, the end of an era. The Thriftway, which had been named the Miss Century 21, was retired. The Miss Bardol was now the hottest boat on the circuit. In '64 and '65, Muncey spent some time in several boats, including the Notre Dame, Dollar Bill, the Such Crest. And in '66, Muncey signed to drive the Miss U.S. But Bill seriously contemplated retiring from the sports. At the President's Cup, racing itself nearly fell to its knees with the deaths of driver Ron Musson, Rex Manchester, and Don Wilson. Muncey felt it was only fate that spared him. Just 2 weeks later, Muncey was thrown from the Miss U.S. He was saved by his flak jacket. Later, Chuck Thompson, another veteran driver, was killed. After an off-season of soul-searching, Bill's love for the hydros brought him back for the 1967 season. In 1968, Muncey and the U.S. won the World Championship. In '69, he joined the Meyer Sheet Metal Camp. He won 3 races, and the working relationship between Muncey and Lee Shaneth was born. In '71, the Atlas Van Lines Camp hit the hydro scene. In the Atlas in '72, Muncey picked up his 4th Gold Cup, tying Gar Wood's all-time mark, which was very important to Muncey. But it was another 4 years before he became competitive again. He bought out the pay-in-pack crew in camp and eventually became the national high point champion. In '77, Bill was reluctant, but went on to the now familiar cab-over Atlas. His crew chief of that time, Jim Lucero, insisted Bill be retrained to drive this new boat, even at his age and experience level. For some reason, the death of his old friend, Ron Musson, was still on Muncey's mind. But he raced on. He won his 6th Gold Cup, the only man to do so. In '78 and '79, well, it brought Bill his 7th and 8th Gold Cup victories. In 1980, the Budweiser came into prominence with their Griffin-powered cab-over. Muncey pushed his boat to the ragged edge, however, for a victory in the Columbia Cup at Pasco. He followed that with another win just 2 weeks later on Lake Washington. This year, Bill again pushed the boat to its limits, trying to compete with the new Bud. He led in many final heats only to have the boat break and then watch the Budweiser or some other boat fly by for the checkered flag. Bill had 1 victory this year, that taking place at Evansville, Indiana.
In Seattle, his winning string was snapped, losing to the Bud. San Diego, again, he lost in the final heat after leading. And then there was Acapulco. Welcome back to our look at Bill Muncey. Elaine, he was a great promoter, Muncey the promoter. He was not only the driver, the good guy, the bad guy, but a promoter, and you had a great experience.
Oh, he was really a wonderful man. The interesting thing is, and we talked about this, Bill was such a champion of the sport, but he was also, there are takers and givers, I think, in sports, and Bill was a real giver. He took the trophies, he took the prizes, but he gave even more back. We kind of have an example of that.
Here he
is.
If we're able to win this thing, and we're going to try awfully hard, it'll be a Squire Shop Atlas Van Lines victory. Don't you think that's neat? Would you like to see it?
It's great. You look wonderful in red.
Looking as Chip Hanauer. But there's other things that elderliness brings to you.
Distinguished. He would not look distinguished in red. You look
We thought we'd have a lot of fun dealing with it. We're sad that they didn't get on it. And I really wanted to have an Atlas Van Lines truck run over him, to be honest. But anyway, there are some great sports and a neat outfit, and we're glad they're in the sport, and they didn't get in the final heat, so we're going to represent them the best way we can.
You know, he didn't make a big deal out of it, but he was always the first one to help anybody in trouble.
It's true. An annual event with Seafair was having the driver's show with you, Dick. What do you remember about it?
Well, in August of this year, we had Brenda on, Brenda Jones and John Walters and Steve Reynolds and Chip Hanauer. And Bill had a self-deprecating kind of wit, you know, and which leads us to this cut that we selected from August show prior to the race. Take a look at this one. Bill, I read a quote in the paper this week, I think, that, and the part of it said, it's okay, I'm already a bad guy in Seattle.
I don't think I could ever do anything right in Seattle, win or lose. They just sort of hate me a little bit. I don't know why. I got booed right out of the Kingdome, first man in the history of power sports. And I didn't do anything except say that the San Diego Chargers are going to blow the doors off the Seahawks. That's all I said. As long as they are for you or against you, at least they're involved in the sport. I think that's the trick part. And a lot of people maybe don't like the way I drive a boat, or they don't like the way I appear. I'm sort of strange looking, and I didn't grow good hair, and a little teeny person. I got little dinky legs and arms and other stuff that ain't working so good. But it's just one of those things. On the other hand, they can never say that we're not, you know, trying to run super strong and win as many boat races as we can. That's the objective, and we do that.
When he talks like that, what does that do to you? What kind of strategy
Makes
is
him
he?
want to throw
What kind of strategy is he employing?
I agree with him 100%. You know, everybody knows him.
What
they don't
about
like
the part
him,
about being small and dinky arms and all that? Or which part do you agree with?
He's got dinky arms, and he doesn't grow good hair. He's a pretty good boss. You know, he drives a race boat good, and he does a good job for boat racing in general. And Bill Muncey has made, you know, very dedicated commitment to our sport, and I think that you know, we as drivers and everybody that's involved in the sport owes Bill an awful lot for that.
So you want to pay him back?
Well, no, we're just going to overlook the fact that he has dinky arms and skinny legs and doesn't grow good hair.
My doors off.
Very humble guy. Huh?
Normally what happens
It's easy to be gracious when you're legendary. It's one of those.
Rod Belcher and Mike Fitzsimmons, Bill Muncey would not have been maybe the great personality that he was had it not been for the fact he was a great driver.
This man could drive race boats.
And all the other drivers knew it.
That's exactly right. Here's some examples. Talk about it, gentlemen.
Wrote the book on it, didn't he, Rod?
Oh, boy. And you know, he had his own style. He didn't always agree with everybody's other style of driving, but he still respected them, and they sure respected him.
Watch Mr. Muncey on the upper side of your screen there. He's the guy that's running second right now, but not for long.
Look at this.
He went dead in the water and came back to overtake the Madison in this particular race, and this is what you call painting buoys. Bill was good for that. Wasn't much of a second story man, but boy, could he paint water-level buoys.
He saved ground, as they say in the, you know,
in the old Swiftway days, he used to be able to corner so beautifully, and they'd say the Atlas would always want to fade out on the corners, but it would always turn so nice, too. It was a gorgeous driving job that Bill would do most of the time.
I think many of us who did the broadcast, we would bet where Muncey would be at the beginning of a heat. Would he be way outside, inside? Where would he come from?
Typically in the concessions tent before a race, most of the drivers bet the same sort of thing.
Here's a good example again.
Muncey, you never knew where Muncey was coming from. He would try the outside, he would try the inside. The Atlas, fortunately, would start anywhere. The big rooster tail is Bill. Now, he won't stay there, though. Everybody thinks he's going to. Now, watch. All of a sudden, Mr. Muncey will cut back to the inside of the course, and he always seemed to be right on time. Watch, he'll come flashing across right on the money every time. And with that kind of speed and that kind of 25-year history of a driver that had learned it all and did it right always.
They all tried to hit that start like he could. Not too many of them did it that often.
Many of them have their formulas, like Chenoweth always stays inside in the Budweiser, but that was the thing about Bill. He was unpredictable. You never knew where he would come from.
Start from the outside and take lane number 1 away from them all.
I remember Chip Hanauer being very concerned about that. He says, I know where Dean is, but I never know exactly where Bill is. I always have to look out for him. Munceyisms. That's something all of us started a term because of Bill, how he has made
right.
the sport colorful.
He was an inventor. He was an original. He invented a lot of the language of hydroplane racing. And, you know, it wasn't something he copied. He invented these things. For instance.
Hey, it's a lovely day in Seattle. There's 8 million people here. King's coverage is going to be the best they've had in years and years, and the Atlas Van Line's going to run like a bandit all day long.
Absolutely. He said it all.
It hasn't he, though? He has for years. And the truth is that you just damn drive by the seat of your pants when you're in a cab over. Coming down the front chute, I'm already committed, and I know what I'm going to do, and I've made up my mind, and by then I'm flying. Not everybody, I suppose, is familiar with what it takes to keep an unlimited hydroplane running, but you don't blow it out of your backyard garage. When it's out of attitude, I'm able to delicately move my hoof off the throttle just very carefully and get the boat back into attitude without having to lose a lot of boat speed. Of course, this is our forklift, which we absolutely have to reach all this equipment that we have in storage. Ours is one of the fastest forklifts in town. I think it can blow the Budweiser's doors off. Of course, they got a little extra horsepower with theirs.
We can't do it without people like Bill Muncey either in the cockpit or up here next to me.
Thank you so much. I really enjoyed doing it with you. I'm sorry I couldn't be more competitive today because the Atlas Van Lines is a super sled to drive. I really enjoy it very much. It's exciting for me.
This gives us a short chance to chat a little bit about the Bill Muncey all of us remember, a very close friend and a compatriot and a fellow professional. Dick, what do you remember?
Well, 2 years ago on Seattle Tonight, he jumped in with a band, the Barney Armstrong Machine, and played the saxophone. He was a well-rounded guy. He drove the fast cars. He had the clean runabout, the clean uniform, always a clean uniform, and the dirty boots. Always the same dirty boots.
That's right.
Great sense of humor. Respected. And viewing back the other shows that we've done this morning, he had ultimate respect for everybody else, and he was up on top of things. He was looking for Boeing to come up with some sort of a capsule the next time around, and they all admired and respected him too. So it was that mutual kind of thing. Great for the sport.
Rod, he worked with you as far as your first broadcast.
Oh, yeah. Let's go back to 1960. You're all too young to remember. But, here I was, my first television sports job, really, with this station. And I had about 4 days to prepare for what was then the Apple Cup race at Lake Chelan. And, boy, I didn't know anything about the hydroplane racing business, and I'd never met Bill Muncey. But I went to his home. He gave me a crash course that was something else in about 3 days, and it was tough to assimilate because he knew it all and was obvious to me, but he sure put me in good shape for at least trying to do that first race right.
Sounded like an expert. Elaine, what about you?
Well, one of the things that I was remembering last night when I was thinking about Bill was that when I first met his wife, Fran, and did an interview for one of our telecasts, she seemed very shy and very quiet, and he seemed very proud of her. And a couple years later, he said, "You've got to do a story on Fran this year because she's selling souvenirs." And I went up and interviewed her, and she was so much more independent. She was talking about some weeks she made more money than Bill had because he'd had a tough year. And he was bragging to me later about that, saying, you know, all right. And their relationship had changed, and he felt just as warmly about her in both cases. It was fun. He just grew so much with so many relationships, professional and personal.
Exactly. Mike, what about you? You were the expert of the broadcast team.
Bill was a family man. He raised 2 families in his 25-year career. And perhaps one of the most important things to him in his last years was Edward Muncey, his young son who had to be at the dock when he came back. And so many, many touching pictures of Bill Muncey at the end of a victorious day, triumphant day, even a sad day, was to have Edward at the end of the dock for him. It was very important to him. And his cowboy hat and those old boots lasted 25 years. They really did. Those were important for Bill to have that and chocolate ice cream.
Chocolate ice cream, exactly right. I can remember talking with him, and he was getting ready to shoot some promos with us in his uniform, his white, crisp overalls, and he had tennis shoes on. And Dick Warzinski, our director, who has done the hydroplane races for many years now, looked over at Bill and said, "Bill, where are the boots?" Yeah. He says, "Oh, I forgot them. I'm not driving today anyway." So, but he didn't worry about it when he was not in the boat. But if he ever had to get in the boat, those boots were always going to be there.
You remember Older's Better? Older's better in 1979, and Reynolds said that faster is, or younger is faster.
Exactly.
So, you know, Bill alluded to the fact, you know, everybody hates me in Seattle. Well, there was a bit of truth in that. Bill's manner turned some people off. And yet, and he could be surly after a race when he lost because he liked to win. God, he was a heck of a competitor. But he never held a grudge. A day later, he was through with it and looking ahead. He didn't look back.
Elaine knows about that.
Well, yeah, I used to chase him around with a microphone. But, you know, the interesting thing is he touched people. Whether people loved him or at times hated him, he touched people. He had an effect on them. And I know when the word got out that he had been in that accident, I know how many phone calls we got here at King 5 last night, and he touched a lot of lives, and most of us are better off for that.
He touched us.
Exactly. Unity right now, because we all will miss him. And we'd like to leave you with some memories of a man named Bill Muncey.
Oh, I think, hey, you know, having been in this so darn long, I should have learned something by now. Tactically, I think that I've always paid a great deal of attention to the sport, and I've been a student of the sport, and I still am a student, and I'm still learning. And I think it's helped me a lot. I think that having driven as long as I have, many of the moves that I make, that when I'm out of attitude, or, I mean, getting a little looser than I should, I don't think that, you know, I'm not a giant intellect. I'm an average guy, smarts-wise, although I may be a little more racing smart than some people because I've been there so long. But the truth is that most of those moves, those corrections you make to get yourself back into attitude, come as a result of conditioned reflexes and having done it so darn many times. And boy, let me tell you, do I make them work. I'd like to feel maybe people remember me as a good, strong competitor and a guy who was willing to pay the price to enjoy whatever success I've had, and, you know, to kick as much back into the sport as I've been able to take from it. And I think that's about it.